Our next question is directed at Mr. Case. You have 1 minute and 30 seconds. Hawaii has had a great reputation for providing safety and security for visitors and residents alike. Although this is a local responsibility, can you identify opportunities for the federal government to provide assistance to the county and state governments to preserve this status?
Sure. Well, I always believe in going back to some of the basics and reminding ourselves that everything is linked together in one way or the other. So let's remind ourselves, first of all, that economic health equals lower crime. And so as we take care of our economy, as we provide jobs, we facilitate a lower crime rate right there, and we help our visitors and our residents alike from that particular perspective. Economic activity also allows us the discretion and the ability to continue good, solid federal programs that help local law enforcement, whether it be law enforcement training or whether it be law enforcement equipping, which is an important part of our federal government assisting our local crime prevention efforts right here. Of course, we have a very active federal law enforcement presence here as well, and we want to continue that in every way we possibly can here. And all of these things, in one way or the other, have to do with your U.S. Senator working in the trenches. This isn't just about throwing in a bill every once in a while. This is about actually working in the trenches with the federal government, both the executive and the legislative branch, to make sure that programs that are out there are reauthorized and are funded in an affordable way going forward. If we do that, we can continue to maintain one of the lowest crime rates in the entire country. And, of course, that will be darn good for tourism, because tourists don't like high crime rate places.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Case. Ms. Hirono, you have 1 minute.
One of the important programs that I've supported, which the Republicans unfortunately are cutting back on, is the COPS program. And this places police officers in our communities. It is something that is so critical. When President Clinton and others pushed for the COPS program, it literally funded hundreds of thousands of police officers protecting tourists as well as residents in communities all across our country. And that program, when it comes up for reauthorization, I have supported. We have sought to expand it. Unfortunately, there are others in Congress who do not believe that that should be a role for the federal government, and they have cut back on those programs, as well as so many other programs that support what we're doing in terms of drug treatment programs that have to do with crime, prevention programs that have to do with lowering crime rates. These are all the kinds of programs that the federal government has a role to play along with our counties and with our states, and I support them.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hirono. Mr. Carroll, you have 1 minute.
Yes, thank you, Paula. The joblessness and homelessness that we have here are reflective of the poor economy that we have. The stimulus that Bush put in place, the stimulus that Barack Obama put in place, are really a disaster. Right now, I think I'm worried about the Chinese buying Washington on eBay because of the amount of federal debt that we have to the Chinese. The government is not our mother. The government is not our father. The government is supposed to be our servant. Everything is not supposed to come from the government. It's got to come here. And the one way we can change that, the one way we can make this the safest place in the world, is to have our economy open and free with free trade worldwide. And I'm talking about tourism worldwide. I'm talking about internationally and nationally. I think that those are the things that have to be done, and I will work to do that. Again, it has to go back to the Jones Act. It has to go back to free trade. But that is really where it's at. When we have that and we've got jobs for people and people can make a living and they're not having to clean toilets. In fact, one of the reasons I'm running is I've got about 20 descendants, and I don't want them having to clean toilets for the rest of their lives as a good job.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carroll. Ms. Hirono, this question is directed at you. There's 1 minute and 30 seconds. Oahu's traffic problems have once again made national headlines. Besides the Honolulu Rail Transit Project, are there alternative proposals or solutions that would serve as a substitute for rail and qualify for federal funding?
I have worked with our congressional delegation to make sure that as Oahu proceeds with rail as an option for our people so that we can get out of our cars. Yes, I support rail as a choice for the people of Oahu who are sitting there in gridlock 24/7. For the neighbor islands, I have brought resources supporting expansion of their bus systems, because as you know, Hawaii Island, all the other neighbor islands, they're relying on buses. And the federal government has, under the Surface Transportation Bill, there's room for those kinds of alternatives. I've supported expanding bikeways as yet another way for people to move from place to place. I support alternatives to what we have now, which is an over-reliance on diesel fuel, over-reliance on oil. We need to get ourselves away from our energy use. State of Hawaii, all of us, spends about $5 billion every single year. When we talk about a more sustainable future for Hawaii, energy use is a huge part of it. We need to become energy independent by relying on solar, wind, geothermal, biofuel, all the other options that we ought to be looking to.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hirono. Mr. Carroll, you have 1 minute.
Could I ask you to repeat that question?
Sure.
Please?
Oahu's traffic problems have made national headlines once again. Besides the Honolulu Rail Transit Project, are there alternative proposals or solutions that would serve as a substitute for rail and qualify for federal funding?
Yeah. I think everybody has to look at Panos Pavaderos' proposals for the hot lanes and the various things that we have there. In addition to that, I believe that I would love to see bike paths all the way around this island and really all around every island. I think that's a very valuable government expenditure to get our kids out of cars and onto the bikes and hiking. I'm actually over 39 and I ride almost every day, and I find it's tremendously good for your health and your ability to think. So those are about the best things that I can think of to do. If we had a ability to have the old Oahu Rail bed as a place for our train, I would probably be in favor of that and would try to get government funding. The one that they have now simply does not make sense to me. As far as other alternatives, the only other one that's really good is walking, and I advise that all the old folks out there should do that. So,
all right, thank you very much. Good advice, Mr. Carroll. Mr. Case, 1 minute.
Well, the short answer is yes, there are other federal funding opportunities for transportation. As Maisie pointed out correctly, we do fund transportation projects on the neighbor islands. The question is that what we should do? Not whether they're available or not, but is that what we should do? I believe that we need a rail system that has a high capacity capability, a high speed capability to move a lot of people very fast throughout this island. And I believe that because, first of all, it's incredibly unacceptable what is the situation today, and I cannot imagine the situation 25 to 50 years from now. I cannot imagine that. And I cannot imagine that not only for the residents of Hawaii, especially those from Ewa Beach, who spent an hour plus, even 2 hours, coming to Waikiki today, just as an example, to work. They passed me at Fort Weaver Road in the morning at 5:30 for the early shift. I mean, come on, that's not going to work down the road. And it is a visitor problem, too. I asked Audrey on the way here, what's the number one thing the visitors say on the plane? On an exit interview negative, they say the transportation. That's going to catch up with the visitor industry. So, yeah, the money's there, but I don't think that that's the right way to spend it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Case. Mr. Carroll, 1:30 for this question. Do you see a role for a U.S. Senator to help resurrect the inter-island super ferry system?
Absolutely. I had just written in my notes super ferry because I meant to put that in my last comment. I got so carried away with the biking thing that I forgot. But no, absolutely. I was absolutely sick when I saw the super ferry going down. And by the way, I was in the legislature back in the 70s and introduced the first Shoreline Protection Management Act. When we crafted that bill, I did it with a guy from Sierra Club. We put in both the EA, environmental assessment, as well as the EIS, which is a lot more complicated and inexpensive. When I heard that Lingle was going to go ahead forward and let the project start, without even doing an environmental assessment, I called into Morioka, I think it was, on the radio, and I said, what are you guys doing? And he says, oh, we don't need to do an EA for this because we're just putting some railings in the harbor. I said, you got a $40 million project in Kahului Harbor and you're not going to do an EA? No, we don't need it. So everybody knows what's happened to that. But one of the other methods of transportation we have here, I'm not sure it would really work right now, but to go back to that ferry that we had that went from I guess, Eva Beach down to town, and we also really have to get that super ferry back, because that really can, I had so many people, including farmers, electricians, aerospace people, not aerospace, but air conditioning folks, they can work on all the different islands. It's tremendous for small business, it's tremendous for tourism, and particularly for bikers, and I promise you that I'll do my best to get that super ferry back. Mahalo.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Carroll. Mr. Case, 1 minute.
In my agenda for strengthening tourism, we talk about one of the keys for the tourism industry going out in the next 25 years being the ease in getting around. And I do have concerns for the tourist industry specifically that the ease in getting around between islands is not there and is not going to be there at the rate and the type that we want going out over the next couple of decades, the next generation, both in inter-island air and surface transportation, maritime transportation. In all honesty, I think we lost an incredible opportunity there. Of course, a United States Senator has a role in facilitating alternatives for inter-island transportation and must have that role and will have a role for me as a United States Senator, because I think that is one of the major issues that is unsatisfied in terms of facilitating our economy. I think it's going to be tough, in all honesty, to resurrect that super ferry. The stars were really aligned there. But when you have the federal maritime folks taking a hose job on buying back those ships at the incredible amount of money they did, I think they're going to have a little bit of a jaundiced view about going down the road again. Is it worth a try? Yes, it is. Using the proper procedures, is it feasible? I don't know right now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Case. Ms. Hirono, 1 minute.
An idea like the super ferry obviously needs to involve a lot of people, because this was so controversial. There were people on the other islands who just hated the idea. Clearly, we're not going to be pushing or forcing anything down our people's throats. So if we're going to do super ferry, we're going to have to do it right, which means we should have a full environmental impact statement. We don't need to wait for the Supreme Court to say, hey, administration, you should have done it the right way. So the right way, listening to the people, and yes, when all of that is in place, we are also there as members of the federal delegation. This is all about working together to support what it is that the people of Hawaii want, whether it's transportation, whether it's sustainability in farming, whether it's sustainability in energy. It is all about working in a collaborative way to get things done for the people of Hawaii.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hirono. We're now going to have closing statements, and we will begin with Ms. Hirono. You have 2 minutes.
Paula, I want to thank you once again, and to the members of this group for sponsoring this debate. And I want to thank my colleagues, John and Ed, for a lively 1 hour. Our tourist industry is so important, and my record in supporting this industry is long and deep. It started with the Visa Waiver Program, which involved hundreds and hundreds of people in the state of Hawaii, and we finally got it. Our state is reaping the benefits of that. We need to do the same thing for China. My Visit USA bill is an idea whose time has come. And I would welcome all of you to get on board, because this is yet another idea that might take us a little longer than one session of Congress, but we know we need to do this. I bring a collaborative style to everything that I do in Congress. So whether it was to get that $6 million more for our airports, to modernize and repair our airports, that was done on a bipartisan collaborative way. Or whether it's my Visit USA bill, which I've partnered with a Republican in Congress to do. Or whether it's fighting for Native Hawaiian and Native Alaska education programs, which I partnered with Don Young, a longtime Republican of Alaska. You need a senator who brings a collaborative style, who doesn't just talk about it, who does it. I will always fight for the people of Hawaii. I will always fight for the people of Hawaii, and my record shows it. I ask for your support. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hirono. 2 minutes in closing statements from Mr. Carroll.
Mahalo to each of you, and particularly the Hawaii Hotel and Lodging Association, and especially my good friend Mufi Hanneman, whom I've tried to get to be a Republican for about 60 years now. So I would like to be your United States Senator, and I believe that the enterprise and successful businesses, both large and small, power this economy and the country. I would champion Hawaii's visitor industry as well as tourism across the mainland and around the world, and I have done that and participated in it as an airline pilot. It's the kind of stable, growing economic driver that we need, and we desperately need it here. When I announced that I was going to run for the U.S. Senate, my friends called and said, "John, why don't you enjoy your retirement? You've earned it. Go relax on your farm." Sometimes when you see options before you, and you realize that unless you take your principles and values and enter the process, you will remain an inconsequential observer. Now, Abraham Lincoln went through this too, by the way. Now, without a voice in the big decisions facing us, you just do not participate. I don't think that's fair. So if you want an old-fashioned Reagan conservative, and I'm very proud to be a conservative, then I'd appreciate your help. I'm going to ask every one of you folks here, including Mufi, to go to my website, carolforsenate.com, contribute heavily to my campaign. This is the first time I've openly asked people for money, I believe. I know I'm much younger, as I said earlier, than our senators, Dana Kaka and Inouye, who've done a great job, but I will bring youth, and I promise to mature in office, although I must say, one of my partners said, "John, don't make promises you can't fulfill." Mahalo, meke aloha, pumehana.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carroll. Mr. Case, 2 minutes.
Your industry, the most important single industry for Hawaii today, and I believe tomorrow, and the people of Hawaii have a choice in the Democratic primary between me and Mazie. And I think I agree with what Mazie just said, which is that you need a senator, we need a senator who doesn't just talk about it, but does it. Mazie has mentioned the Visit USA bill several times, I think 6 times if I counted correctly throughout the presentation today. And there is no doubt that the Visit USA bill is a good idea. But who can get it done? She waited 4 years and 11 months to introduce it. She has not added any co-sponsors. It was introduced after a United States Senator introduced the same version over in the U.S. Senate side. You need somebody that's going to work for you all 6 years, every day, all 6 years, out over the generation. A generation really of inescapable change for our country and for our world. Some of the constants are always going to be there. People are going to always want to travel. That's as old as human beings. Tourism is always going to be a discretionary industry which depends on economic activity. People that don't have jobs and don't have money don't travel. And tourism will always ride on the economic health of our country and our state. But there's a lot of uncertainties facing us out over the next generation. Will the world be stable or not? Who are the next industries out there or destinations out there? You know, we've talked about China ad nauseum almost right now. What about India? It's going to have more people, a better economy over time. We haven't even scratched that surface yet. Brazil, Russia, these are possibilities that we can pursue. Will we keep up with the competition? I think that's the biggest challenge for Hawaii tourism and U.S. tourism. Can we compete with the people that are offering what we are offering today? And they have a very, very solid plan for getting there. And will we still be able to offer people what they want? Your government can't and shouldn't do everything for you, but your government can be a working partner with you the whole way. My candidacy offers you somebody that knows tourism, listens to tourism, and will advocate for tourism over the next generation. Mahalo. I ask for your support.
Thank you very much, Mr. Case. A round of applause once again. We want to thank Mr. John Carroll, Mr. Ed Case, and Ms. Mazie Hirono for joining us today. Thank you so much. We'd also like to thank the Hawaii Lodging and Tourism Association for hosting this event and for allowing KITV4 News to televise this event to help Hawaii's voters make up their minds in this very important race. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, aloha.